high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Talking Catholic podcast. I'm your host today, Mike Walsh, and I'm flying solo, actually semi-solo today. I'll be bringing on one of my favorite guests in a mere moment. But we're recording this on the 48th anniversary of Roe v. Wade today, and you'll be listening to this a few days later. But I did want to kind of talk about it a little bit. It's one of those dates on the Christian calendar, but truthfully, the calendar of the United States, that we as Catholics really need to make sure that we always keep ever present. Every year, we know that there's a large march in DC, the March for Life, and that march typically in years past, certainly when I was a kid, it was always held on the date of Roe v. Wade. And in later years, just a few years ago, they made the decision to, in a way of encouraging people to attend the march, they moved it to the last Friday of every January. And they made it more of a weekend, which I think was a good thing. They would always have a vigil mass on the eve on Thursday night, and then they usually a rally to start the march off, and then the march up Constitution to the Supreme Court building. And I've been to it each of the last 5 years, and I will say that it's a incredibly moving experience just to be around so many like-minded individuals. And I don't mean a few hundred, I mean thousands, tens of thousands even. The one last year that President Trump spoke at was probably the largest one I had ever seen, and I know that there were close to 20,000 people, if not more, there. It was a beautiful crush of humanity there, and across the spectrum, by the way. I mean, people, school kids to the elderly. Our own bishop always makes Dennis Sullivan always makes the journey down as well. But instead of marching in the parade, he wisely, at the age of mid-70s, realized that if he stood on the corner of New Jersey and Constitution, he was able to see the entirety of the parade. And most importantly, I think in his case, he was able to greet all of the pilgrims to the parade who came from the Diocese of Camden. And it's always great to go because I see all the other diocesan parishes and schools as well. But each year I would go down with him, and my favorite part was seeing the delegations come by his perch there on the corner, and the joy on his face seeing everybody was more than enough. But then just to see all of those groups of people, the various parishes, all of our schools, every single one of the high schools would come down with the delegation. They'd all get their picture with Bishop. Bishop would bless each and every one of them, talk to them for as long as they wanted to talk, thank them for making the pilgrimage, and showing publicly that we as Catholics, and quite frankly, we as Americans, should be a pro-life community. My favorite part was always seeing the young kids, because I feel like when you think of Catholicism, you will often gravitate to what we often see in the pews, which are, older Catholics, particularly nowadays where we're sort of socially distanced, and a lot of our sisters and brothers are not attending Mass with us for fear of the coronavirus. But at an event like that, we saw everybody would come down, people being pushed in wheelchairs and taking part. It was gorgeous. And, going back to the young people, I think there's this philosophy or feeling in the Catholic Church that young people are engaged. They are engaged. They may not be properly engaged to come to Mass, but I do think that particularly our young pro-life Catholics are very engaged to show up, to be seen, to be a part of things. I think young people have a natural inclination to activity, and the idea of going down to DC and wearing similar clothes and carrying their pro-life signs, I think engages them in a way that they have not yet figured out how to be engaged by the Mass by. Maybe that's the kind of thing that comes with age as we all get a little older and start to focus a little bit more on the Eucharist and Jesus in that sort of quiet time of Mass. But when it's, shouting and when everyone's shouting and walking and together and singing, I think young church really gets activated. So it's a beautiful thing to see. At any rate, it is the 48th anniversary today, so I did want to take a few moments to just kind of reflect on a few things. And the USCCB had put out their reflection series for today, and I just wanted to read it. So today, on the 48th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, we mourn the many children's lives ended by abortion and remember in prayer those who suffer the aftermath. The Church comes together today to pray for the protection of all unborn children and to make reparation for abortion, trusting that the Lord hears our prayers. The importance of prayer is reflected in Evangelium Vitae, which says, "A great prayer for life is urgently needed, a prayer which will rise up throughout the world. Through special initiatives and daily prayer, may an impassioned plea rise to God, the Creator and lover of life, from every Christian community, from every group and association, from every family, and from the heart of every believer. May the prayer arise in our hearts today and each day forward until every human being is protected in law and welcomed in love." So as a brief prayer for life, I want to read to you right now. Father and maker of all, you adorn all creation with splendor and beauty and fashion human lives in your image and likeness. Awaken in every heart reverence for the work of your hands and renew among your people a readiness to nurture and sustain your precious gift of love, life. Grant this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, God, forever and ever. Amen. Now, there are a lot of things. So there's a novena for life that's taking place right now. I think as we're recording this, we're on day 3 of the novena. The idea was that it was going to lead up to the March for Life. And the March for Life is still going on in some fashion. It's going on as a virtual event. And if you go to marchforlife.org, there are a number of different ideas you can do, suggestions for you to do for doing the march on your own, from your home, from your neighborhood, from your school, from your parish, to do on the actual day of the March for Life. But so you can check that out. You can go to respectlife.org to find the USCCB suggestions. You go to marchforlife.org to find their suggestions. A little reminder that the marchforlife.org isn't necessarily, I shouldn't say necessarily, it is not officially a Catholic organization. It's very much a Christian organization, ecumenical in that, but obviously Catholics make up a large part of it. And in future years, if you have not been to it, I wholeheartedly encourage you to attend. It is truly a beautiful experience. Most parishes, or at least deaneries in our different dioceses, will usually come together to get a bus and come down and en masse. Certainly in the New Jersey area, it's a pretty easy way of an easy drive to get to DC. I typically, because as all of my co-hosts know, which is why I'm here today by myself, I'm a very isolated person. I like me, so I tend to drive down. And then, of course, those of us along Amtrak, I highly encourage you to take Amtrak down too, because it is a very easy drive. Or a very easy ride. You literally, for us people in the Philadelphia area, hop on 30th Street, take it down to Union Station, the most beautiful train station on the planet, and it's literally just like a 5-minute walk from Union Station to Congress. So you can definitely get to the end of it very easily. Walk a little further down. If you've never been to DC, I also encourage you to go to DC. It's a beautiful town. It's perfectly laid out for visitors. It's very easy to get to everything. It's a big wagon wheel, so you always know where you're kind of going. And the metro system down there is fantastic. So there really is no reason not to go to the march if you have the ability and the inclination. And I hope everybody listening has some form of inclination to take part. So the person I have with me today has been on the podcast before, and it's kind of nice because she and I are, quite frankly, tied to the hip. I think I've referred to as a frenemy a few times, but the problem is in the 2 years that or more than 2 years now, I think that she's worked for the diocese, 3 years, almost every project we work on together. As a matter of fact, she's working on one project by herself right now. And I actually kind of feel like I'm being excluded from it. She talks about it every now and again, and I go, "Oh my goodness, how you're doing a project without me? I don't think that's ever happened before. It's so nice." So I have with me the director of the Office of Discipleship and Leadership for the Diocese of Camden, Donna Ottaviano-Britt. Donna, good to see you today.
Nice to see you too, Mike. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Oh, it's always my pleasure.
Yes, frenemy. There's that word again, frenemy, and that's kind of the case. Lots of projects we work on together. Sometimes you're bossing me around, but hey, what am I going to do about that?
And oftentimes it's vice versa, or at least it feels that way. In the case, we were working on a project recently where we were definitely in charge, but neither one of us wanted to take charge of it. I think we just kind of did it without either one of us deciding. I've never tried to push something off on somebody else so much in my life. But yeah, we're working on an Advent project, and as usual, it was successful. But neither one of us wanted to claim ownership for it.
No,
so anyway,
we'll have to be a little bit better with the next one.
Yes. We'll talk about it a little bit that today. So actually, I just finished talking a little bit about Roe v. Wade and the March for Life. Donna, do you have any sort of reflections on it from your perspective as someone who spends more time in the pastoral world than I do?
Yeah, I admire the dedication and the heart and the spirit of all the people that are part of that movement, whether they're Catholic or Christian, like you had talked about, right? March for Life is really a much larger organization. It's not just Catholic, although Catholics make up a large part of it. I have been to the March for Life several times as an adult, and it is an amazing experience. And you talked about how youthful the attendees are. It is so wonderful to be with that many young people. Mm-hmm. And to the point also that you made, young church gravitates to the doing, right? Sometimes the more seasoned, I like seasoned versus older, seasoned Catholics, our transformation sometimes comes from the doing, not to a bit more of the spiritual devotions and prayer, right? Because prayer is powerful. So even if you're a doer, though, in the Catholic Church, you need to have a prayer life to help inform and shape and help you discern. But I have always loved my time at the pro-life march in January. I'm disappointed it's not happening this year because I would have been there. Yeah,
me too. I was holding out hope literally until the last day. I think I'd gotten home late last Friday. And had seen the announcement had come through just a few hours earlier, and I literally, I don't use this word often, I was literally crestfallen. Like, I understand. I'm certainly not upset with the organizers. I think in today's day and age, and particularly everything that been going on with down in DC at the time, I can understand why they made that decision, and I'm not saying it's an unwise decision, but I do think though that it puts the onus on us as individuals to make sure that certainly today on the 22nd when we're recording this, it is the 22nd, right? 22nd yes. When we're recording this, that we're keeping that pro-life energy close to our hearts. Particularly as we saw this week with the election of a new president and a government now that 2/3 of it is, run by a party that does not necessarily share our pro-life perspective, certainly in regards to abortion. I think there are other elements of the pro-life movement where they do gravitate to it, but in this one area, they do come up lacking. So, that was one of the reasons why I think I was so crestfallen was I really thought that it was an important show of strength by the Right to Life movement to be there, particularly a week after, the inauguration of a new government. But you know what? We'll have to do it from our homes, and we'll have to make it just as powerful and important today and next Friday on the 29th. So that message is received in Washington, D.C. and all of our state capitals, and for the people at large. I think, I think the March for Life movement isn't necessarily, and it isn't necessarily intended to be an aggressive movement, but I do think in times like this, when we have lost some of our political connections, that's when it's even more important to be outspoken and to be present, to be public with our dedication to human life. So,
and I think that needs to continue to live, right? And across all the pro-life groups, particularly here in South Jersey, and there are a number of them, and you look at the work that they do, and they really are tireless. They are tireless in their efforts, in terms of establishing homes for where pregnant women can go and live out their pregnancies. That if they didn't have that, they would make different choices. They are supported in many, many ways in terms of, the supplies that they'll need, the people that they'll need, right? Really tending to mom and baby after. Because I think there are a lot of people maybe on the other side of this particular issue that really poke at the pro-life people that's out there, like pre-birth people. There's so much good work that happens for these young women and their babies, after they're born. So I think that really doesn't get enough of the attention is around how much actually happens for these young moms and young babies. Because we know abortion harms not just the baby by ending the baby's life, it really harms the woman.
Yeah, it's I have a physician. I always think about him during this time period because he's a Catholic doctor, and he's my GP, and he's a beautiful man, and he always wears the right to life pin that's a two babies' feet on his lapel, on his doctor's lapel, on his doctor's coat. And he's got his Knights of Columbus pin on the other side. I love it. I love the guy. Imagine that a secular workplace where the doctor is very comfortable in espousing his beliefs like that. And so I asked him one time, I said, what do you do when someone comes to you and asks you, about terminating a pregnancy? And he goes, Mike, it's not a struggle for me personally. It's certainly a struggle as a doctor because, my number one goal is to help the person and help, obviously, in this case, the baby as well. So I let them know, I said, listen, I will find you every other avenue you could use other than like I'll find adoption. We'll find other things for you to do. And anything I can offer you, I'll offer you. And then he says, but I won't refer you for an abortion. You'll have to go to another doctor for that. I won't do that. But he always ends it the same way. And I was very moved by this. He always ends it the same way. He goes, but I'll tell you this, Mike, I tell them all the same thing. After it happens, come back to me and I'll help you with whatever else. Cause there will be things you'll have to deal with medically after having that. And I think there's a generosity of spirit in that and a warning obviously as well to women who would consider it. That this isn't a one and done thing. You are going to have other things you got to deal with. At any rate, I was very appreciative of the fact that it kind of gave me hope that there were doctors out there, affirming the right to life, even in the doctor's office. So he's a good guy.
Yeah, that's a lovely story. And I think so. My husband has been in a pro-life movement a long, long time. And his winter little wool Jeff hat has that same pin on it of the two babies' feet. He's been wearing that for a very long time. So very dedicated. But I do think, and I appreciate the story you tell of the doctor who's so public, right? Mm-hmm. That he's pro-life with the pin. And he's also Catholic because he's wearing his Knights of Columbus pin. Yep. And we do kind of live in an age now where that is getting to be a little bit challenging, to be so public with it. It's subtle. You'd have to know what those pins are. To look at that, but it's becoming a little bit challenging to think, but geez, I want to advocate. I want to advocate for babies. I want to advocate for Jesus, so some of those things can be a little bit challenging for us to do, but we have to be as brave as the first century Christians.
We do. And, I go back to something we said earlier, or I said earlier that about, in an environment where, things have sort of turned against us a little bit, that's when it's so important. That's when you really do have to stand up. And I don't necessarily mean that you have to be riotous about it, but you have to be public and you have to show that no, this movement exists and it's larger than anybody I think gives it credit for. It's because there's a lot. I mean, all of television and media and everything feels against us when it comes to the right to life. And I think we need to stand up and show ourselves as, good Christians, and we're here, and we're here for one reason and one reason only, and that's to protect the life, and in this case, protect the life of an unborn child. So it has nothing to do about anything else. So many other arguments are made about it, and I always hear those arguments, and I go, that's not the reason why we're doing this. It isn't like you often hear the thing that's to keep women down. I'm like, well, the most hardcore right to lifers I've ever met are all women. So I know it's not to keep women down. And a great many of them are executives. So I know that's not the case. So,
right.
But it's I think it's an easy headline sometimes, and some form of misogyny in this. And boy, could that not be any further from the truth.
It's a weak argument. I think a lot of women, society and culture are trying to sell women a bill of goods, that in order to live a fulfilling life, you must sacrifice, how God really designed us,
Yeah.
I agree with you. To be moms. Yeah.
It is. You're absolutely right. It is absolutely part of a larger issue in that regard. But, and I only wish I was more expert to be able to talk about it eloquently, but this is all I got. So me as a commoner Catholic, just and my limited perspective. But I think it's important that I always have those conversations. So I try not to let this day in particular go past without having that conversation. So I was happy I could do it on the podcast and with you, Donna. As always.
Well, thanks, Mike. Considering you just referred to yourself as a commoner Catholic, you actually did a pretty nice job.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think I'm going to have commoner Catholic written somewhere. Maybe if I ever get a tattoo, maybe that'll be my tattoo.
Maybe that should be it if you decide to get one. That'll work.
So, I wanted to have you on because, it's the beginning of the year, and you and I have actually been talking about quite a few projects, and some of them I think might be of interest to our listeners, not just in the Diocese of Camden, but across the podcast verse, with some ideas that, we kind of have planned for this year. But one that isn't necessarily Lenten in mind, but is something that the Holy Father challenged us to is the year of St. Joseph. So
I love the year of St. Joseph.
So do I. And I thought it was a great idea. And I actually feel that, because it really fixates on Joseph as the father of Jesus, the human father of Jesus, as and sort of like what we can learn from a saint who, quite frankly, doesn't have a lot of words referenced to him in the Bible, but was someone, when he could have most easily turned his back on Mary and Jesus, he stepped up, much like in what we were talking about, very, very pro-life oriented. He stuck with them and was a good father to him and a good husband to her. So the Holy Father brought this up. As you've been sort of reading up on the year of St. Joseph, how have you sort of wanted to focus on it?
Well, I'm actually super excited about the year of St. Joseph. So I love St. Joseph. I'm married to a man, St. Joseph, so it's his patron saint. But the fact that the Holy Father has brought us a year, right? So we're celebrating the 150th anniversary of St. Joseph being the patron of the Catholic Church. And you think about it, what do I really know about St. Joseph? As you said, right? I don't think he's quoted anywhere in the Bible. He's referenced, but we have none of his words. Yeah. But you think about the life the Holy Family must have lived, and then at some point Joseph died before Jesus started his ministry. Yeah. There's all this wonderful literature that actually is available on written by many of our saints and their dedication to St. Joseph and what they have come to learn about him. So there's a book that's available. It's written by Father Calloway. It's Consecration to St. Joseph. It's a 33-day consecration. And so I have read a sizable chunk of that book. And it's really wonderful to kind of dig deep on St. Joseph. He really is the spiritual father of all of us. And you look at his yes to Mary. And there's this whole idea, that, and right in the heels of, we're talking about pro-life, is that Mary was an unwed pregnant teenager. But you have to understand Jewish culture, right? From the first century, their weddings are actually almost two parts, right? You get betrothed, which is really the wedding. And then the husband goes and prepares his home for her, and during that betrothal is when she goes and sees her cousin Elizabeth. So we all kind of know the story that comes through. And you look at his faithfulness. But here's the thing that I have come to learn in particular, reading up now on St. Joseph so that I'm ready for this year and I can get as much as I can spiritually out of this year. He was a very holy man. It is no accident, right, that God chose him. Yeah. He was very, very holy. And the thing I love about the coming to understand the Old Testament is that's what Mary and Joseph prayed. Like if you think about praying the Psalms, that's what they prayed, right? Mm-hmm. Joseph was holy. And Joseph wanted no harm to come to Mary. And Joseph didn't think he was worthy of Mary and Jesus. He knew what was happening. He's like, oh, I can't do that, And so God had to send him the angel in his dream and say, yes, you can. So you should do these things. And it makes Joseph so relatable is to think sometimes we think the things that God is putting in front of us, we cannot do. Yet if we trust, we say yes. We often talk about Mary's fiat. Joseph gave his fiat too to God. So there's this wonderful journey that we're going to take this year as it relates to St. Joseph. I am super excited.
Yeah, St. Joseph, now, listen, in addition to being a commoner Catholic, I'm certainly not a theologian either. But one of the things that has always sort of in the back of my mind, I've considered in thinking about St. Joseph is, when you think about it, when Jesus is born, the first human with the sin of stain on him, because Mary did not have the sin of stain on her. She had grace. He was the rest of us. He was literally a dude, much like myself. And hopefully much better than myself, but he was a dude. And, here's this human who decides that he's going to care for this, divinely touched woman and, God incarnate in this child. And it's just, I don't know how that decision is made. Certainly he didn't, I don't think he knew the true, he did, he had the dream from God, but I think a common Jew from that time probably can't conceptualize all these things that we've been focusing on for 2,000 years. And yet there he is. So I think in every respect that it was a beautiful opportunity for that the Pope, surprisingly for all of us, with no preparation so we could get ready for the year of St. Joseph, he really gives us someone that I think a lot of people can sink their teeth into and see a lot of themselves, particularly guys, obviously, but I think any person who, when faced with that challenge that Joseph was faced with and makes the decision, says yes, I think it's beautiful. So we actually have a couple of ideas that we've kicked around, one of which I will surprise you with, Donna, because it hasn't been announced yet. I just found out that Bishop will be taking part in our novena of St. Joseph, and that the pilgrimage site will be the Polish church, the St. Joe's Polish Church, which is perhaps the most beautiful church in all of the Diocese of Camden. It's a Polish church in Camden, in the Diocese of Camden, yes. But the church itself is in Camden City, and it is just gorgeous. It has these beautiful paintings and beautiful architecture, and the major thoroughfare interstate that crisscrosses Camden goes right past it. So you see its giant green and brick spire coming up as you go past it. It's a gorgeous church. So I believe the novena will be starting and ending on the 11th and the 19th from that church. And Bishop
That's March, right? You're talking about the feast day of St. Joseph? March?
Yes. March will start March 11th and end on the 19th. And I believe Bishop will be starting each one with starting and ending with a live stream mass from that church. And then as part of the novena, Don and I have been tasked with going to the other churches in South Jersey named after St. Joseph and doing daily reflections during that novena. So, hey, Donna.
When did that happen, Mike?
we have some work to do. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great.
Oh, there's another project. Okay, then. You know what, though? But I'm super excited to play some role in this year of St. Joseph, because I think there's so much that we can learn from him.
I like that you think you're going to play some role. What are you talking about?
That play a role and to be part of, because he is our spiritual father, the same way that he play the role that God chose him to be his earthly father of his son. He's our spiritual father. So I think there's a lot to learn from him. And I also think a great deal will come for those of us who entrust ourselves to him. And we haven't much thought of that. This is a great year to think about doing that. Oh, I'm excited.
You should be. You should be. I can't wait to see what you come up with.
Well, okay. We call that collaboration word. That word, Mike, collaboration. I guess let's talk about that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll make it. Like I said, I'll make it look beautiful. You got to figure it out what it is. But no, we are looking forward to it. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to come up with some ideas of what it should take place. But I hope other parishes and dioceses will think of doing similar things. I forget who had actually suggested the novena for St. Joseph. Might have actually been you. We had a meeting about it, and I thought that was such a great idea. So that was wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's terrific. And I think people could consider going to buy the book, Consecration to St. Joseph, because the writing of saints who had a particular devotion to him, they have written some beautiful, beautiful passages around St. Joseph. I think it's early now. We've just come out of Advent, Christmas season. But even for Advent this year, go and do the Advent meditations with St. Joseph. That happens in Advent. Ascension Press puts it out. I just went through it with a small group in Advent. So rich, so amazing to think about walking with St. Joseph all the way to the birth of Jesus. Magnificent.
Yeah. And, I talked about dioceses and parishes, but certainly there are a number of Catholic men's groups, or Catholic groups in general, but maybe particularly Catholic men's groups with the idea of St. Joseph as a patron to that. I think I certainly hope to see the Knights of Columbus doing a lot with the year of St. Joseph in particular, but hopefully something on the Feast of St. Joseph as well.
Yeah. And doesn't the Man Up South Jersey group have St. Joseph as their patron?
They do, as a matter of fact. They do. Man Up Philly, and it's a breakaway group, not breakaway, that's an offshoot of that Man Up South Jersey. They have, in fact, entrusted this year to St. Joseph as they prepare for their next conference, which I believe will be the second Saturday in November at Paul VI Conference Center in Haddon Township, New Jersey. So they're actually looking forward to putting out a lot of great content. They have a mailing list right now that has a weekly St. Joseph's reflection. So they're putting out that stuff all the time. So it's really good. Yeah. I think so. St. Joseph and certainly the Pope's letter on St. Joseph is a content-rich creation for Catholics, not just men, all Catholics to really consider. So Donna, on top of the year of St. Joseph and currently Right to Life, a little birdie told me Lent's coming too. So,
yes, coming fast too. Fast in less than a month.
Less than a month, we'll be at Ash Wednesday, and so we've already kind of started our preparations for Ash Wednesday. And one of the things that we've been not for just Ash Wednesday, for all of Lent, but one of the things that we're kind of preparing for is related to Ash Wednesday, which is how's everybody going to get their crosses on their head? And the fact of the matter is, they probably aren't. But you're still going to get your ashes. So I believe in our diocese, and I think certainly in dioceses in the region and possibly across the United States, this year, with COVID restrictions as they are, they're going to be doing away with the forehead cross, and instead they're going to be using an Italian technique. And apparently, the rest of the world Catholic world looks at our crosses on our forehead and goes, "What are you people doing?" In Europe, historically, the sprinkling of ashes was just that, a sprinkling of ashes. What they do is, and you saw this live, I kind of want you to explain it. When you come up, you literally tip your head forward. The priest puts his fingers in the ashes and kind of crunches them over your head and a couple inches over your head, and they fall into your hair or onto your scalp if you're semi-hairless like myself, and off you go. So you actually got to experience that last year because you happened to be in Rome on Ash Wednesday?
We're in Rome for Ash Wednesday on the Episcopal pilgrimage. So Bishop was on the pilgrimage, and we had gone to Israel first, and then we moved to Italy for a few days before we flew home. So we had the great blessing to be in Rome for Ash Wednesday. We flew home the next day. So it was the first time that I was able to actually witness that. And this is an ancient practice for Ash Wednesday. We're not used to it here, right, in the United States. So I know a lot of Catholics are having a different kind of reaction to this news when they hear it. They're a little disappointed that they won't have the big cross on their forehead. Apparently, it's an American thing to want to broadcast to the world that they're Catholic when they go and get their ashes, right, on Ash Wednesday. But it was really beautiful when we were in Rome. And the three priests that were with us, Bishop was certainly there, but Father Hughes and Father Gormley were also on this trip. And it was super beautiful to see all of them in their purple vestments. We also had deacons there too. So everyone has the purple on, right? Because it's Lent. And to watch Father Hughes sprinkle the head of Bishop and to sprinkle the head of Father Gormley with the Ash Wednesday ashes. It was really beautiful. And I was like, oh, how wonderful. And then the rest of us, get in line, and Father Hughes sprinkles all of our heads, all of us who are there. So it's a really beautiful practice. So I know people are feeling a little bit resistant because their Ash Wednesday has changed this year, but don't be open. This is an old ancient practice. And I believe, I can't quote it because I don't know it. There is a scripture passage that tells us to be humble in our faith. So we don't get the big cross this year, they'll be in our hair. And if you love to receive ashes, it's not obligatory in our faith is to go, but if you love to receive ashes, go anyway.
I've always been conflicted over the big cross because on your forehead, because on the one hand, because I've said it so many different times, it's like, you're not supposed to make a show out of your faith. But at the same time, as a PR guy, I love the show of a faith, and I love seeing, celebrities who will go to mass or go to Ash Wednesday mass or services and get the cross, and then they put it on their Instagram account, or just it's always wonderful to see the different versions of crosses. You get the smudge, you get the giant cross, you get that is definitely not a T. So I don't know what letter they're trying to put there. But the truth of the matter, you actually took video wisely. Probably didn't even realize how wise you were last year. Yeah, you took some video for social media while this was going on, and we're actually going to use it as a little bit of a sort of an information package, since we have proof that, in fact, Bishop and Father Hughes, the Vicar General of the Diocese, are totally cool with sprinkling. It was actually I have one complaint. You did shut the camera off too soon because one of our CFR sisters was about to get sprinkled, and I was curious how they did the sprinkling on a veil. They did put it on the veil. I'm sure she didn't remove her veil, but I was curious as to how the sisters would do it. But it's completely normal. So don't be complaining too much, because we're having once again one more little change to our lives because of the COVID. So.
Well, the other thing that I would add to that piece of the conversation, Mike, our church is filled with richness, and some of it is ancient, right? And some of it we've kind of left behind, right? We do live in a post-Christian culture now, and there's a lot of things. There's a lot in the culture that would gobble us up if we let it. How wonderful to get to participate in an ancient ritual of the church. I actually love this. I think it's wonderful. So asking people to kind of open themselves up to like, oh, this is an ancient practice of the Catholic Church. I'm all in.
Yeah. I had the same feeling the first time I went to a Latin Mass. It was the exact same feeling. I was like, it's an extraordinary version of the Mass in today's world. And I was like, this is amazing. It was so cool. And then I also came to realize, boy, I really like the ordinary version of the Mass, the current ordinary version of the Mass. So I'm totally fine with going to the Mass in the vernacular. But it is something I like to see from time to time. And as I have never been to Rome or anywhere else in Italy for that matter, I will be looking forward to getting the Roman style of ashes sprinkled on my head. So that gets us to Ash Wednesday. What are we doing after that?
I don't know. We have like a list of projects, right? So...
we are kicking around, and I know we're going to do a 4-day Lenten retreat, diocesan-wide Lenten retreat, and we haven't.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah, well, I got news for you. We may have another conversation when this podcast is over. Call it a planning thing. but we're going to put some ideas together for that because people are still kind of locked in. There are a lot of particularly older Catholics who are just not comfortable to leave yet. My parents, who are fearless in every other aspect of their lives, really have no intention of getting around other human beings until they're vaccinated and things like that. So I'm like, well, then we're going to keep creating content for people like them.
Right, because that's really what we're hoping to do. So there's two parts to this. It's really trying to create good content, things that contribute to your, pursuit of holiness for people, but also to alleviate some of the work that goes on in the parishes. So pastors don't think they have to create everything themselves, trying to create things. So we are planning a 3 to 4 night retreat for the diocese that will live stream. Certainly the whole Novena to St. Joseph is going to occur during Lent. That would be during Lent. You know what the other thing is? I mean, there's a number of parishes that are launching small faith sharing groups. They're going to use Zoom, because Zoom has this beautiful technology of being in big groups and then sending people off to smaller discussion groups, which are great. So there's a couple of things that we're kicking around, which obviously there must be something else that I'm not aware of if Mike wants to talk to me when this is over.
well, we'd have to figure out the 4-day one still. Because we want to bring in.
That's my project. I'm working on it.
Yeah, we want to bring in some bigger talent Catholic talent to encourage our local Catholics. But one of the things we are doing from a diocesan standpoint, and we've let all the pastors know, is some of our parishes actually are and have been very active over the last year, despite, and all safely, but despite the COVID guidelines. And we do want to go to some of their parishes and elevate what they're doing and bring it to the diocese as a whole. So we are looking forward to that. We did a little bit of that during Advent, and the stuff we did was very well received. So, now we're going to figure out how to do it again and do it better. Right, Donna? That's all we do.
We're trying to do everything we do better. Some of the things are like, we could have done that better. And then some of the things we look at, we're like, wow, that was really great. And then we find out somebody's like, no, you could have done that better. Okay. It's like God teaching us humility.
Listen, yes, my pride takes a hit on a regular basis because I'll see a finished product and listen, to the rest of the world, it looks perfectly fine. And then to us types, it's like, ooh, could have made that better. Could have done this, which is perfectly normal. And we must all accept it. Plus, we learn from failure. But we
do indeed. Listen, that's what I tell all the parish teams. Like in this time, like post convocation, we're almost at the 2-year anniversary of the convocation. Nobody knew COVID would happen, But it's like try everything. And if you fail, great. Just fail fast, learn from it, and go again. Just begin again.
That is absolutely right, and I think we have to, I fully admit, I actually had a conversation with one of our colleagues yesterday about this, that I was doing great. I mean, I was about to say I was doing great during the COVID. That's not exactly how I meant that to come across, but professionally and spiritually, I was able to maintain a good perspective. But I will admit, January hit, and boy, oh boy, I having some difficulty. Like I really have had. Not that, I haven't lost my faith in God or anything like that, but I have just been kind of down. And I'm not sure why. I don't know. It could be the winter blues. Very, very, in the Catholic faith, January tends to be sort of like all the pastors tend to go away on vacation. So there's not a lot going on. And, we don't have any major events going on. We wouldn't have them anyway because we're in COVID times. But I just feel like, we're kind of, telling somebody yesterday, I'm like, man, I feel like I'm lacking inspiration. Like not the mass is still inspiring me and stuff like that. But for the stuff we do here, there's just, I'm having a hard time ginning up for anything. And he was very wise and said, Mike, you and every other pastor in the diocese is kind of feeling that right now because we can't do these big communal faith sharing, at least like we used to, and we also don't have any major projects. So you mentioned the convocation of Catholic leaders. Or you mentioned the convocation. You were referring to the convocation of Catholic leaders, the Joy of the Gospel in South Jersey, which was diocesan-wide convocation that we put together over the course of 18 months, and it debuted in March of 2018, late March of 2018,
Late March 19.
19. Man, I cannot get my dates right. And it was a wild success. We brought together 600 to 800 Catholic lay leaders from around the diocese with a whole bunch of like renowned Catholic leaders, global leaders. And it was really wonderful. And God bless you. You've been able to keep the convocation spirit alive by, maintaining these teams from each of these parishes that came out and redeveloping teams that may have broken up. And a lot of pastors have moved around. So that has been a challenge because the pastor leaves, the team no longer has its figurehead any longer. So a lot of moving parts. And I'll constantly be trying to get you to do something or respond to one of my emails. And you go, I'm busy all day. And I'm like, how could she be busy all day? And then I remember, 800 people, moving parts, probably like herding cats. So, do you think Lent, this opportunity for us to kind of plan stuff for Lent, will give you another opportunity to sort of interface with your convocation Catholic leaders and get them sort of refocused again?
Well, that's what I'm hoping. So we had, who came to the convocation was Catholic Apostolate Center. And they ran a number of workshops for us. And they actually had come out with a series of videos in the fall. And it was kind of like the next step around missionary discipleship. And so we took their leader's guide and we kind of broke it apart to go with each. I had a really wonderful team that came from across the diocese to kind of assist in that work, customize little leader's guides to go with each of these videos. And we rolled it out. And there's a couple of parishes now that are establishing these small faith sharing groups, and they're going to use Zoom, and they're going to do it during Lent, 5 weeks. They're going to take the first 5 videos, and they're inviting the larger parish now to come to these small faith sharing groups using this content. So what do we talk about? What are the 4 fundamental building blocks of missionary discipleship? Is an encounter with Jesus. How do you enable that? How do you accompany someone? Regardless of where they are, how do you walk with them, but walk with them and bring them then into community, right? Have them be part of the larger community. And then how do they then go forth? So the couple of parishes are actually taking on this work. So it's exciting to kind of see what they're doing as it relates to that. So, but it is challenging. People miss not coming together. And there's, people know that technology enables this, but it's still not the same as being together. God created us to be in community, but it isn't like God doesn't know what's going on now. So I think God is pushing us to a certain level. Yeah,
that's very true. Boy, I do appreciate his pushes. Well, The truth of the I know it sounds peculiar and maybe even almost sacrilegious, but, I think all of us, I think we get into a comfort zone, and I think we get used to everything that we've been doing, and we kind of, let me rephrase it. I think other people do that. I don't know if necessarily you and I do that, but I think actually, in truth, though, I think we do. I think, like today I came into work thinking I was going to work on 3 different things, and now I'm working on 3 completely different things. The only thing I'm working on today that I knew I was going to work on is having this conversation with you, Donna. So thank goodness for a weekly deadline that I cannot miss, that we have to record 1 podcast per week. But I do think it's a good push. That's why the year of St. Joseph was such a good thing, because, I love it when we have a theme year to work with. We had the, what was it? Just a few years ago, we opened the Holy Doors for that was the Year of Mercy. Year of Mercy, right. And that was great. Mm-hmm. I loved working on that. That was a great project. So I enjoy when we have these themes that we can keep running throughout the year. But again, it goes to like the depth of what we have, the richness of the Catholic Church. There's so much. I don't care if you live to be 100 and you were baptized as a baby. You have, there's so much for you to explore. You barely scratch the surface if you live to be 100 and go meet Jesus when you're 100. You just never scratch the surface. That's how much is there. It's great. It's really great. That's a very healthy way of looking at it, because you're absolutely right. There's always something else coming down the pike. You would think a 2,000-year-old religion, we got it figured out. Nah, there's still more. Yeah, we so don't. We don't, and that's because human nature always changes. That's the thing. is that.
Well, and here's the other thing, right? We always talk about, the brokenness. We're all broken. We're all broken. Well, yeah, we are. If we're willing to actually take that step and be introspective about ourselves, and Lent is an ideal time for that, is to really look at ourselves. So if the plan is to give up chocolate for Lent, don't. Do something meaningful.
Yeah.
Right. And the one thing I would say, we didn't really talk about it, kind of like the current culture, right? So there's shifting administration in the White House, and there's this whole sense of division in the country. I think we've just come through a period of where we've put our faith in a human being or a collection of human beings, and that they somehow are our salvation. They are not. They are not. So any of us who may have lost our way through all of this really needs to spend some time praying in discernment, like, what's next? Where is my salvation? My salvation is in Jesus. And that's what people need to focus on.
Donna, that may be the most brilliant thing you've ever said to me. And you've said many smart things, but that's definitely the most brilliant thing you've ever said. I mean, you're absolutely right. Stop putting your faith in they. You put your faith in he. That's how it works.
Right. Because those people are as broken as I am. Yeah. Right. So regardless of whatever I'm thinking about anybody else that's out there that looks like they're a leader, my leader is Jesus. And my leader told me to love and to serve. My job is to be as much like him as possible. Hope doesn't disappoint. So if you're following Jesus, you can change the world. It doesn't matter how big your circle is, you can change the world. And that's where we should focus.
You're absolutely right. Oh my God. It's a shame we have 3 more minutes.
Thank God that's recorded. I can say Mike said Donna Ottaviano-Britt was absolutely right on January 21st, 2021, at whatever time it is.
Well, not only that, what you said was the perfect way to end the podcast. We still have another 3 minutes to fill. So I'm like, oh, goodness.
So now it's your turn, Mike. It's your turn.
No. I went on a 10-minute jag about the right to life at the beginning, which I'm sure you were sitting there. I had actually a web page up, so I couldn't see you on the screen. I'm sure you were sitting there going, I can't believe he's being so, I don't know, devout. That's not, it's been 10 minutes. He hasn't used one sarcastic reference yet.
And you didn't. And I was like, where's he getting that from? Mike has got his holy on for today.
Well, I'll tell you, I always feel an extra sense of responsibility when I'm the only host, because the truth of the matter is my 3 co-hosts are much better Catholics than I am. They're much better human beings than I am. And that's much like yourself. And well, it is. I mean, it's true. I mean, you talk about humility and stuff like that. When it comes to my Catholicism, I wrap myself in the fact that not joyfully, I just wrap myself in the fact that I'm a typical sinner, and I'm not sure I should be giving advice to anybody on anything other than to say, I'm just like you, and here's how I manage through it. But that's why I always appreciate when Lent and Advent roll around, because those 2 seasons, I, once again, not theologian enough to give you chapter and verse on it, but it's always been my impression that they're both intended for us to focus on ourselves, not in a selfish way, but in a way of what can I do better? What haven't I been doing? And that's not to say you can't do it during ordinary time. It's just that, the church is really geared during the Advent and Lent to remind us, A, of our mortality, B, that, we are, as people who have chosen to call ourselves Catholics and follow God, a commitment comes with that. And that commitment is you have to follow the mission to God, which is hard for Catholics to do. I mean, we have a new president who feels himself, and there's some debate about this, but he's a person who's chosen to refer to himself as a Catholic. And, I think he needs to be reminded on a regular basis that comes with responsibilities, like all of us do. And I'm not saying he as president needs to be reminded that. He as human needs to be responsive to that. And so do we. So that is the thing it's a personal thing. It's something we have to adjust for ourselves for and keep on ourselves for, but it's something that's important. So, I'm not a big fan of pointing fingers or throwing stones, but I do enjoy to remind people that, if we're going to claim something, then sometimes that means you got to make some hard decisions about how you choose to live your life and what you believe and what you say. So hence why on the podcast I surround myself with far better people than me, because I know my limitations and how much better y'all are than I am at living our faith and praising our faith. So, Don,
That was nice of you, Mike.
No, you're very welcome. That's recorded too, so you can save that for a future. When you pick me up.
Use it.
But anyway, so to our listeners, well, first of all, Donna, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it, and thanks for all the hard work you do for the diocese and me. And then thank you to all of our listeners.
I heard that.
And thank you to all our listeners. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.